So, I'm going to talk about building user experience. No, it's not just because it looks cool on that slide because it looks stupid, but actually, to be honest, it's probably the only thing I'm qualified to talk to you guys about tonight. So, I graduated back in July, and didn't really think it was appropriate if I came along and told you to do X, Y, Z in 7 steps. So, instead, I'm going to tell you about the experience I've had so far. And hopefully you can get something out of that. Cool, so a little bit about me. Twitter and stuff's down there, but I'll bore you with telling me about singer-songwriters, so if you want to hear new music, head over to Twitter, else maybe avoid it. Basically, my name's Hemi, hi. All my life I've practically wanted to be a teacher. And that was the plan up until about 3 weeks before uni started in 2011. And everyone said to me, oh, you have like this really natural thing for computers, and I was like, yeah, whatever. And I somehow ended up on a computer science course at the University of Kent. This was not my plan, and I did not really know much about computing. But I went in, and I actually started to learn about all these really cool things. Even ended up learning about 24 for one module, which was really awesome. But to be honest, it didn't really do it for me. There was lots of cool little things you could learn about, but they were just kind of small little bits. And I've kind of always been a more bigger picture person. So I started sort of taking a look at what I actually enjoyed out of the course, and it was kind of all of these things about how could we get people to use all of these cool things, and what did it mean for us. And then I stumbled across this thing called UX. Experience. And I was kind of like, this is the bigger picture, and this is the thing that kind of gives all of those little other things that you learn about a direction and sort of a goal for what you should actually be trying to achieve. And so that's kind of what I was like, that's what I want to do. And so that's what I tried to get a little bit of experience doing, so obviously computer science course isn't really the mainstream into it. So I did a little stint at IBM, where I basically made a tool which measured how good the user experience was on other tools. So essentially, you could put transformers and put it for itself, it would be awesome. And then I went to Microsoft, and I worked for the mobile app team. Say what you like about that. You hate it right here. But there's one thing I will say about them, and that is that they have a very structured way of doing their user experience there, and you can see how that's actually sort of influenced Windows 10 and everything else, which again, I don't want to say what you like. Personally, I really like it, and I think there it was really great to see how they had this complete sort of UX feel start to finish and how it influenced every project. So that was that. This is a weird slide. I was supposed to be a soldier, but I was trying to avoid guns and things, but yeah. I basically was like, cool, out of uni, this is cool, I'm going to go get a new job. I was all raring to go, and I was like, awesome. And then I landed this job at Clearbooks, and that is basically an accounting software company. So you can all yawn because it's the word accounting.
You used to use it.
Cool. So, yeah, I'm really excited about getting there, but one thing that struck me a bit weird when I got there was kind of like, the best way to describe it is it had all of these buttons, and the button sort of said smile, and you press the button smile, and it said the response from people would be cry. And I was a bit like, well, this isn't quite right, I don't really know what's going on here. So I'm describing that experience as trying to win the hearts and minds from behind enemy lines. And that basically sums up what I had to do. So, give you a little bit of a concept. All raring to go, read Undercover User Experience. I was like, yeah, I'm the only UX person, it'll be awesome, I'll go in, I've read this book, I know what we're doing. Landed into the backfield, and I was like, this is awesome. And then I sort of, when you get to a new company, the first thing you sort of do is sit back, take stock, see what everyone's around you doing. And I was like, it still seems to have a lot of opinion decision making. Right. No. Every single decision is literally made on emotional arguments. And by that I don't mean they argue and shout at each other, which, okay, they do sometimes, but what I actually mean is kind of like, it was, I feel like we should do it like this. Oh, well, but I think we should do it this way. And I kind of just stood up to them and I was like, is that what the users are actually doing? And I sort of just got this blank response. And that's when I realised that we literally really needed some hardcore data for them to actually go against. So naturally, I ran to Google Analytics, only to be disappointed when I got there to find out that actually the guy that had written the analytics wasn't actually doing anything. So the first thing it did was make sure we actually had analytics working, which is something everyone definitely really needs, because until you actually have data telling you what your users are doing and how they're using the site, you can't really make any judgments on what you should actually be doing, because realistically you have no idea about what is going on at all. So we did that, we had our analytics, we had our hardcore data, that's the guy running off. And my next plan was to build myself a network. So going in as the only UX person, it's quite difficult. You're not really sure who's on your side, and I did actually find out we had someone previously for about 6 months. And there's two sides to every story, but what I heard from was he was not a team member and isolated himself. And unfortunately that created a load of bad blood, and they basically assumed that's what UX was, and they sort of pushed it on the role as a whole rather than one individual. So I had my first mission, which was to go around and talk to every single person in the company. So I started off with sales, found out what they actually sold, or how they felt picking up that phone every single time, what were they sick and tired of hearing from customers, and why did they not make the deal. And then I went over to support and sat with them and asked what keeps coming up, what are your problems, and sat down with them and actually answered tickets from real customers, trying to help them. It was actually quite a good way to learn the system myself. And then I went over to the developers, and I was like, what can I do for you? And to be honest, they were very scared, because they were like, this new girl's come in, and she's basically going to rip apart my whole work. I've heard a moan about things over there, and I'm pretty sure I worked 3 months on that, and she just hated it. So I kind of just went around, and I asked them, what is it that you think could be improved? What are you going to admit is bad about this, and what would you actually like to change? As I spoke to a few of them, the one thing that kept coming up was how to import bank statements into the application. And I was like, okay, let me take this and I'll show you what we can do with it. So I went back and did a few sketches, very rough, and basically just took them around the design team, got a load of feedback, redid them. And then I created wireframes in Azure and invited the whole company to come and see this presentation of what we could do. And this was really good because they were not pretty, and that was the whole idea of it. I have two graphic designers in the team, they can make things look pretty. I literally created the ugliest wireframes ever. But that was really good because what it got them to focus on is, this is the functionality we need to be going for, this is the flow, this is how it was broken, this is where we should be taking it. And this was really good because all of a sudden, the developers actually had something that they could see that they liked, and they were like, okay, she has a direction and we like this, we can go with it, and now we know what we're doing. So that's kind of how I got them on side. So all of a sudden, we were all shooting for the same thing. And I think it helps everyone realise that, essentially, at the end of the day, everybody wants a great product, and everybody wants happy customers, because otherwise you're not going to have a job. And once I sort of shown this to everyone, I think everyone can agree that actually UX is kind of on your side, and we're not here just to sleep at work. And the other thing about my network was, I'm very lucky at the company, we have an online community with our customers, so they can sort of give praise, they can write ideas, and they can actually extend a lot of problems. So whenever I had a query about something I've seen in the app, the thing I like to do is actually just search in the community and read about 50 threads or something about people either slating it, which happens quite a lot, but you have thick skin because a lot of the time it's like, this is awful, and I'm like, okay, I've just got here, it wasn't my fault. But yeah, so between the community and actually talking to everyone in the company, I kind of actually have a really good picture now of how everything works, and everyone's like, okay, well, we're with this girl now, we'll listen to her. So then I started to set up camp. Setting up camp. Yeah. So, I'll tell you where I went now.
I thought you were just reminiscing.
I wasn't reminiscing, but there was a certain order to it, and I'm like, wow. I did. Do you know why it is? I said everything in the wrong order.
Bad user experience.
The smoke's on.
Zombies are coming.
Is that all right?
Safety numbers.
We'll skip that slide, because actually what I was going to talk about on that slide, which is why I was like, what we're actually talking about now is building tools. So essentially, you're in the camp, everyone's now on your side, and that's lovely, it's hunky-dory, but if we stay there, we're not really going to go forward anymore. So now I've actually got everyone to talk about building the tools that you need, and on a battlefield and in a small company, you have very limited supplies. So one of the things I wanted to do was, now we've had all these developers who are like, UX isn't so bad, we kind of like it, but we don't know how to do it, and we don't know how we can help you, because there's only one of me. And so I kind of got the design team together, and I was like, how about we do a star? And they were like, pretty pictures. I was like, yeah. So again, I spent a week researching buttons, and to be honest, you nearly had a talk on how to use buttons, but that would bring on my XYZ rules, so. But yeah, so I kind of like did some research on how to use buttons and presented them with a definitive guide in about one slide of how we should actually use them and what I wanted to do in the application. And then I gave it to the developer and I was like, building the style guide. And then we presented that to all the developers. We were like, would this actually help you? And the response was obviously really positive because they were like, oh, we just copy paste, copy paste. So I was like, yeah. I was like, there's simple rules. I was like, if you can do that, when it goes to QA, I'm not going to be like, what is that button? Why is it in the wrong place? And why is it orange? So that was my tools that I actually gave to developers. Basically, a style guide plus more. But it's not just about them. Being only one person in the company, you actually just kind of want to give yourself tools as well. I think this is where it's about blurring the lines of what your job role actually is. So I kind of took on 2 extra roles. One of them was a product owner, although the name was a bit, we've been called about 6 things in about 2 months we've been doing it. But essentially, my job was, I was given a backlog of 50 things that everybody had once upon a time said, oh, we should do to the app. And I was like, okay. I was like, we'll go for 10. I thought that's ambitious, we'll go for 10. And I sat there with a couple of guys from support, had an accountant in the room as well, and a guy from sales. I was like, okay, we've got lots of perspectives in this room. And I was like, right, bring up the analytics. And there we went with the community, and we sort of went along everything and prioritised everything. And there were some things that seemed really important. And then I was like, actually, if you look in comparison, they're really not that important. And a lot of the time, all of my lucky things that I wanted to do with UX, I actually had to be like, there's actually worse issues. I think sometimes that's a good point. Sometimes you have to take your hat off and not be biased about when you're making some of the decisions. But that was a really cool sort of role that I've taken on. So I think now the company's actually got direction, and yes, I can sneakily fit new experts in the roadmap. But now it's really cool because they've actually got something that everyone can actually aim towards. I think it's really nice now because everyone actually knows that what they're working on is definitely, they're confident that yes, it's going to help UX, it's going to make the customer happier, and it's going to make the business goals. I think before they just didn't have that. And the other role I sort of took on was a QA. Again, we have another bottleneck where there's only one QA in the company. So I like to help them out at the time. So one of the things Until I have to do is like walk through user flows. I was like, no, I'll do it. So now the developers kind of give me their work and I'll sit through it. And I like to assume my mum when I'm doing this. Now my mum can't send an email, I like with her. She has an iPhone, but all she can do is phone, text, and at a stretch WhatsApp. That's kind of it. So I basically put my mum hat on and I was like, right, what's the family that she was using this? I try to do everything possible that she can try to get done. And most of the time, I end up breaking what they've done. And this is where it can get tricky. Because you never... These developers, bless them, have worked like several months on this. They've got their acceptance criteria, and in their mind they think they've met it, and then I can run along like, actually. And so I've kind of taken a new approach with it. The first time I ever did it, I kind of like did screenshots and then explained why it was wrong, and then it didn't go down so well. I think it felt a bit too much like the teacher of me, so it felt like being taught up at school. So instead, what my new approach is I kind of have them sit nearby me on their PC. They do their own thing while I do it. And every time I get frustrated or like annoyed or confused, I actually visually show it, like to an extreme, I guess, but enough that people in the office turn around and they're like, "What's she worried about now?" And but the thing is, they turn around and then they actually see the frustration. And they're like, "What has made you do that?" And I'm like, "Okay, well, this bit doesn't work." So the other day I had a form and I added like 50 things, and then I left it on blank, went for a save, and I was like, "Do you know how annoying you would be if you did this?" And they were like, "No, I've seen it in your face now." I was like, "We have 10,000 customers. If they had done that on Monday morning and I hadn't found that already, the phones would be ringing off the hook." And so now, like controversially, you do hear me like scream sometimes or just get very frustrated, but actually it does actually help people to picture what their user would be doing. And when you actually see that, it's obviously a lot of roles are quite detached from the customer, you can kind of actually really see how you're impacting them. And then you're sort of compelled to fix it a bit better, then it's not just a bug on a board, it's that customer's actually got a real life problem. So they were kind of my tools. Actually one other. One thing I did try was, rather than churning out wireframes all the time, so I think sometimes you can kind of get backlogs. It's quite hard to do wireframes and repeat them, but developers kind of, it takes a lot to build things, the same front end. So one of the things I have been doing more recently, to what the Stargo going, is sitting down with a developer, or a front ender, or a whole morning, be like, right, we've got this page, let's attack this page, and on the fly I'm sort of like, okay, move this here, what about if we do this? And actually, one of the pages we did that to the other day is now going to be pushed live for customers next week. Which is awesome, because I think that got much quicker to be finished than the traditional idea of wireframing and designs. So I think sometimes if you can do like a module pair programming and sort of like join up, it actually does really help. Go a lot faster, and it's much easier sometimes. If I'm not always sure something's possible, just try it instead of having to go over and ask. So that's another tool. So yeah, I guess, where are we headed next? So I've kind of talked about everybody in the company, I do a lot of talking. And just kind of getting everyone to sort of be on the same picture, and kind of like how it's not just about UX, you've kind of got to be, got to experience everyone in the company. If I don't get that word. Yeah, so what I want to do next is essentially carry on marching forward. This morning I started writing test scripts, so I'm going to have, everyone likes the idea of user testing, but from what I understand they've never had a user come in and actually test it. And I know. And the other day I had a customer who reported a bug on the community, and he blessed me, sent me a video of the issue, and I was like, no, he's gone the extra mile and sent me a video. Then in his video he had all of these bookmarks, and I was like, we have an internal bookmark thing on our thing. Like, why is he plugging up his bookmark bar? I sent him a lovely video about how to do that. But I was like, I explained it out of retrospective. I was like, do you know this is what our customers do? They all just sort of like, why would you do that? I was like, well, because you've never asked them. So now I've got the go-ahead to actually come in and have to use this tested, and my next goal is to actually go out and meet them on site. That's quite practical. I'd like to travel around with them. Nice customer in the Cotswolds, a bit on holiday. Clear that bit. But yes, essentially that's kind of like the next step forward. Again, it's adding to that data-driven approach. It's always much easier to convince people if you have the hardcore facts in front of you and you're like, is this what they actually do? And then you kind of have to confront it. And I guess the other thing is growing more minions. I'm not sure they'll let me hire another UX person yet, I don't know. But in the meantime, I've got a whole company there, and it's like 40 people, and everyone in that team is actually responsible for user experience, whether they realise it or not. And I guess that's kind of the thing that I want you guys to take away today, is that every single thing that you do does impact the user experience. So if you're writing a bit of code that you know is rubbish, and then someone has to come back and refactor it, you're taking up the time that they could be doing something else to improve. Same if you sort of like, I don't know, end up making the app really slow, well, I'm going to get my community a bunch of comments about how slow the app is. So I guess my thing for you guys today is just every time you do something, just think, are you actually positively impacting that customer, or are you actually hindering them?
So yeah, we'll see for it.
Cool. So that's
I'm interested in like the kind of separation that you see between you and like the other designers in the company. So what do? They just do things in isolation, and then you end up kind of positioning them with those and that kind of stuff. Or
So
how does it kind of work from a process point of view?
it's a bit different, depending on like, every project we do and things. So some things are wireframe first, and then I'll be like, hold my hand up, they're not pretty enough, and I actually don't think the developer's going to know enough unless we give it a prettier design. And so they'll come along and do that. But some things, like on the Star Guide, because it's such a big project, we sort of split components up. And they'll do a bit, and they'll turn around to me and they'll be like, can you review it? Like, do I need to change some things? But I guess like we're still trying to work that, because they didn't really have a UX person that worked with them before. And so it's still kind of new, and sometimes we do overlap. We had one instance where we duplicated work, which wasn't great. So I think it's just trying to like work together and understand how, I mean, by heart they're graphic designers, and so they're also familiar with all of the things that they've been having to do when there was no UX person. So now they're a bit like, oh, we don't need to do that stuff anymore. So I'm like, but also like we're expanding their interest. So we've got them starting coding and things, and so now they're trying to like, their marketing site's all done by the design team now. We don't need a front ender anymore, which is really cool because then it frees up front end to do the application thing. So it's kind of like we just encourage everyone to go out with the skill set really, and work out who's the best to do what on this project at this time, and essentially just review each other. Yeah. Yeah.
Coming from university,
Yeah.
straight out, did you go straight into Calibrics?
Yeah. Yeah.
How did you find that from like new person, like a proper new person? Because you're like straight from uni, like
Yeah.
you're a freshman sort of thing.
Everyone in the company is actually quite young, and a lot of them have come from my uni. But I do find it strange because I've only ever been to really big corporate companies before, and we have structure there and procedures and like managers and things, and you know. But yeah, I guess like the first thing that got me was how different the culture was, and that they really didn't have processes, and they were really afraid of processes, and just the whole idea of change them was a big hurdle all the time. So I think it's kind of just working out, like listening to them and working out how we can gradually do the change and sort of show them the benefits, I guess. So yeah, I think that was kind of more.
But they did come from like a proper startup kind of
Yeah.
and they worked their way up to like a totally crowd.
I think that's kind of their problem though, because they're like 8 years old or something, so they're still doing things that they did when they were small. And I think they're just starting to realise that what they did when they were small doesn't quite work now. They're going to continue. It was kind of getting them to see that, and like in the few months I've been there, there's been like an absolute massive change in attitude and how they go about everything. I've actually got them having a Kanban board now, so I'm like, I'm excited. Maybe because I can be like, why is that sitting in that column? Yeah, but no. I guess yeah.
Clearly, because I've gone from like the startup.
Yeah,
they're
please.
venture capitalists.
Although they still assume they're a startup.
Well, yeah,
that's their mindset, yeah.
Personality.
That's really not that.
That's a design though, isn't it? To be corporate and startup.
Well, that's it, but it's not a question for now, but that's
It's on top of
a lot of companies in our industry are it's all started off with like two guys in the shed,
just
going up to like proper leadership companies now.
Okay.
So I think Clearings is aiming to go up.
Yeah. I think that's kind of like my experience so far has really helped them think through like how they do their agile builds, how they want to do it. They watched a live video, and then they thought that was live and like agile, and I was like,
thank you.
I think that actually kind of helps coming from like corporate backgrounds to kind of be like, well, I tried it this way, but just try it out, guys, and then it will actually help. And I think sometimes they're just scared of that. Question. Oh, yeah. No, I mentioned at the beginning that, so I kind of don't like telling people to do X, Y, Z like this, because I don't really feel quite qualified to do that yet, to be fair. So, like I have ideas of how I think things should be done, but then I'm always like defining that anyway myself. So, I try to just be like, I think it should be done like this, and this is why, but feel free to rip it apart. That's kind of like my rule with everything. Like every time I do something, I present something, I'm like, oh, that's really good, we love that wireframe. I'm like, no, rip it apart. Give me something bad. You can't leave this room until you do something bad about
So you don't even know.
I know, it's kind of like, you know, say if I usually like the button one, I could just be like, oh, this is how we're going to use buttons now, guys. And you'll just be like, oh, so avoiding that.
Yeah.
Well, that's what Kennedy used to do X, Y, Z. I'd rather you get them on your own just by, like, learning it from, like, something like, you know, not out.
So that
Unconsciously learn about
user
it.
experience is pretty much just like doing what you see. Educating us.
Oh, like, to be fair, like, it is quite hard to sort of decide what you like. One of the instances, you know, in Google Forms, they've got the fields where they're just all lines, and they look a bit weird, but they're kind of cool. Everyone's like, oh, we should do that, but I suggested changing fields, and I was like, I'm not sure that's the best way. Like, we have a lot of like accountants that are very, very old using this system. Like, they're probably still on XP. And so I just kind of like went away and researched on fields for like a few days, and I came back with this idea that you have the label inside the field, but still with a pin, and it basically looks like a single form. But anyway, it turned out like an eye tracking study was actually the best, and they kind of came round to it because they were like, oh no, it looks nice. Like when I did the page. Alright. Yeah. So it's kind of like, so a lot of it is gut instinct, and then it's kind of like get the facts. Does it actually mean get the users in there, see if they like it, see if they can use it.
When you use the button analogy, it's like a 3-year-old when she does her cardigans, and she does the button. She does the button, that's the wrong way around.
What are you on about, Scott?
You're nearly right, but
It's probably the cardigan's fault, so it's never the user's fault, is it? Shame.
Going back to the project management stuff that Adam talked about earlier, in Clearbox, what's the best way to have, or in your company, who has the final say with this stuff? Is it like designers that know best, front enders know best, UX knows best, back end knows best,
It's kind of
management knows best, who has final say?
I'll be honest, it's kind of a problem we have. So when we first got called product owners, we were then told we couldn't call product owners because there was something already in Jira called a product owner, who was basically a different role. And so then they called us product managers, and then everyone was like, oh, you can't be a project manager in Agile! And I was like, alright, so then we got coordinators. And then we had an Agile coach come in, and I was like, they eventually renamed us back to owners and just changed the thing in Jira. But yeah, I think it's something we suffer from at the moment, like, no one is quite sure who should pull the plug on things. And I think that's really important. Like, I'm forcing now, I've refused to turn up to a meeting unless we follow this decision framework, which is basically like, one person is told, we elect someone to make the decision, and we elect someone that who can veto it at the end. And you make sure that everyone that it's going to affect is in that room. And you have a free discussion for like 10-15 minutes, and then a decision's made, and then that's it done. And I tell people to come to that meeting with, if you're going to fight for it, I want figures to show why you should fight for it. And it was interesting, I had someone the other day, I wanted to pull an experimental feature, and they all turned around and went, oh, you can't do that, we use that, can't get rid of that. And I was like, in the new design, you don't need it, there's a workaround. And I was like, 34 customers have 10,000 users, like, it's not worth our time. They were like, but we're one of the 34. I was like, you're 34 out of 10,000. Like, just going, I'm sorry. Yeah, so I think getting people to just sort of follow a script decision, just so until people actually have someone that's not afraid to take those decisions anymore. Yeah, that's still need to improve.
is there a fuck you button? The style guide, there's a fuck you button. It's like bright red.
No, but maybe I should hide that somewhere.
With the change, so when you sort of came on and you improved the experience of the user experience of the developer, did you find it went from sort of an assumptive development procedure, as in they assumed the users wanted to do this or that, and the developers felt confident in those assumptions?
So sometimes there were assumptions, and sometimes they were just like, well, they will hold their hands up, someone will admit this, they never thought about the experience in some parts of it. And I was looking at them like, guys, you actually tried to use it. But yeah, I guess kind of like, getting them to see why it mattered and things is kind of what I did with the whole, try to find something that they knew was bad, that they would admit was bad, and then take that and give them the goal of something to be like, this is what we could aim for. So I think some of them have worked there for years, and the app's always been that way, and there's still a lot of legacy code in there that's from the original writers, and they're like, oh, but we don't have to change it, it's always been like that. I'm like, how's it going to change? But they kind of can't see, so I think sometimes just give them a vision that's not too far-fetched.
Yeah.
My original one was really far-fetched, and then I slashed it down and made it a little bit more. I was like, not years, a couple of months. That's what it is. Yeah.
Did you find that confidence in the development increased once they could see the real purpose?
Yeah.
They became
Yeah, I think it's freed them up. Yeah, but it's freed them up now to, well, now they know that what they're working on is actually definitely going to help and impact the customers in a positive way, whereas before they they already had a priority, and if someone came up and said, oh, can you work on this, they quickly jumped on it. They just jumped between projects, and no one actually really knew if any of it was having any benefit. So now being like, having the product owners being like, this is what you should work on, they confidently know, and they've got the star guys, so they're like, okay, we'll just copy and paste, like, we're not going to screw up the UX massively. And so now it's actually freed them up time to concentrate on their own development and improving their own skills. And then test-driven development and all that. So that's kind of what it's freed their time up now, to be able to concentrate on what they like doing best. I think they become a bit more respectful. Yes.
As a UX, obviously, like a very new UX person joining the company, I've been in design for quite a while. Was there any friction when you joined the team? Like, some people have been doing design for a long time before UX became like a term UX. Like, it should be like part of the design process. Did you have any friction with any of the designers where you come in and sort of say, buttons should go here, this should go here? Like, a good designer should know.
I think
a good experience where stuff goes.
There wasn't actually that much resistance between the designers and the UX. One of them was all for having a UX and kind of had sort of started to read it on their own in their own time to try and start bringing it to the company and try and get everyone to get on that. But yeah, like I mentioned, we did have one instance where like the work got duplicated and essentially she wanted to do it herself. And I was like, fine, but it's still got to be reviewed, so but yeah, I think because I think in design you naturally want everybody to help build the best experience, you don't get so much friction. And okay, sometimes they do get, they're like, really, that button? There was something in the buttons I'd suggest, oh, that's it. The secondary button shouldn't be filled in like the primary buttons because it competes for attention on the page. And I was like, you need to have an outline. They were like, I never looked at it. It was really weird, I was locked on the page. And I was like, just try it. And then they did it, and I'm like, actually, that's alright, we'll use that. But I think if you get resistance, again, it's all about if you show them the facts and can't argue with the facts, which I'm no longer saying like it's an opinion, it's they're in black and white, so they kind of have to actually at least acknowledge it. I'm right, yeah, you.
This does relate.
These are two designers for the other.
It does relate to what you said. I was just wondering, in the where you're working, where does the kind of split come between design and UX? So examples kind of like what you're saying there, like decision. What kind of changes are being made where our designers coming back and saying that doesn't make sense because of this, and saying that doesn't make sense because of this.
Yeah.
Are there any kind of
I think sometimes it happens. Again, it's like, because I'm not doing an opinion based. I do like on my side note, I'll go home and have a good old rant. But I try, like, when I'm actually having a conversation with someone, not to use opinion, just literally be like, well, they've done eye tracking tests on this, and it saves this much time, and we can put it to user testing, and fair enough, like, if it fails user testing or we can use it, I'll give it up, and we can do something else. But unless, like, you can prove the facts wrong, this is where we should go. Generally, they come on board. The only thing I've really liked, marketing side, I kind of leaned into it. Although the first job I ever did when I got there was told to redo the navigation on the marketing side. And I was really worried, so I was like, you're going to let me do something live on the site straight away? The navigation of it's a big thing. And they were like, yeah. And so I did it, and I kept showing, I was like, is this alright? Is this alright? Is this alright? And no one said that it was bad, so we just did it, and then it was fine. It was lovely, actually. But after that, I kind of left them to it, and occasionally I check out it online. Should have really done that. But yeah, that's kind of like their freedom playground, I guess. And then the application on a bit strict.
So do in general, do the designers do the design first, then you review it, Obviously some projects have like budgets to do wireframe, with whole interactive, with user tests and all of that, and journeys and everything like that. So would you get them to do the design first, then you review it, or would you lead them, you would tell them these where the primary action should be, so
yeah, it literally depends who's got the bigger workload at the time. If I've got time to do wireframes, I'll do them. As one of the front enders who's really she's got a flair for user experience, to be fair. And she asked me the other day, she was like, do you want to wireframe this for me, like the changes they suggested in the page that we've already done? And I said, no. I said, you know what the changes were, and I trust you enough to do it, and I'll just review it. And I just got set the code review, and I was like, it's fine. It's good. Yeah, so I guess like it's case by case basis. If they've got more time, then I'll let them do design first, and I'll just look through it. But I think it's like, the more you educate them and the more you turn them into UX minions, the more you can let them like loosen the rein a bit and be like, okay, I know what they're going to do, like it will probably be alright and I'll only have a few tweaks to do. Whereas other people, I have to sort of be like, okay, right, I'm going to sit down with you, we're going to do this together and this is what it should look like. Yeah. Okay.
Since most UX people tend to be from a more design background, like you two, and you're probably a bit more from a development background, I know you're quite good at it. How has that affected you, and how has it affected like the way you work?
Yeah. Well, one thing I found in job interviews was that I got quite a few weird looks because they were like, your degree's computer science, and I'm like, yeah. But actually, I actually find it a lot better because what you tend to find, no disrespect, but a lot of times when you have designers or UXers that aren't able to code, they come up with all these fanciful designs. Oh, we should do this, we should do this, and then I'm like, yeah, but the developers can't actually build that. So, I actually think it does help because I'm like, when I look at something, I'm like, okay, well that's way like, that's gonna like max the scope out by like 2 extra weeks just to do it like that. Like there's a simpler way we could do it and it wouldn't take as long. Some of us are like, we'll just take that approach. So I actually think it's kind of a nice perspective to have, just because I can kind of, I did a lot of Microsoft actually. We had like these crazy design meetings at the beginning of the project and they all like do these fanciful things, and I'll still never forgive myself for this. I allowed them to have a circular, like half semicircle photo on a news app. Oh my god, trying to actually get that to work in code, and then they wanted it to scroll up, and then when it moved, it had to move certain ways, and they wanted a fading bit over it. It was a complete and utter nightmare, and after that I was like, I'm never letting them do something that I'm fully confident we can actually do in code. That was just too much trouble. So yeah, actually I think it's kind of a blessing coming from that background, although it's not traditional, actually really helps. You kind of know what the limits are, and I guess in a way it gives you have a little bit more respect for the devs when they realise that you can actually go and do things yourself. Like when I fixed the analytics, I just jumped in and did all the JavaScript and stuff, and they were like, oh, well you've done that. And I was like, yeah, can you just help me with this bit? Can you double check this? And they were like, okay, you can do something. So yeah, it's good. Cool. Yes.
Oh,
Very good.
do you ever find, have you ever sort of, ever in your entire lifetime, ever found anything like user experience you thought, actually this is like ace, this is brilliant, I really enjoy using this, I'm having a really good experience.
Do you know what the funny thing is? So I'm a girl at shop, obviously. I really like ASOS, and they have I really did like their UX. I've changed it slightly now, but I did originally speaking about going for a graduate job there. Until I sort of thought to myself, if I go there, I already like it, and I'll be so scared of like screwing up and then not liking it myself. And I was like, I'm sort of just playing with what's almost like very, very good. And I was like, yeah. So I was kind of like, I want to go somewhere where it's terrible. So anything I do is only improving what's already there. But yeah, so like, I really like ASOS. Yeah, the funny thing is, I only updated my phone to iOS 9 last night, because up until that point I'd been on iOS 6, because when they brought out iOS 7, the buttons weren't aligned on the pages, and for that one reason I refused to update. So yeah, I'm quite pleased. Well, it's too laggy on my phone to work properly. Literally. Yeah. We'll see. Okay.
One very quick question.
Oh, blue eyes.
Yeah, come on.